too much. I work over at housed actually at the Regional Planning Commission, and the website address there is on the bottom, CUAMPO, and that stands for Clarksville Urbanized Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Long story short, we do the big transportation projects. Warfield 374 from Dunbar out to Stokes Road they're moving the utilities. That will be construction started later this year on that. And here on the south side, 4813 from there at the Liberty Park Fairgrounds, New Bridge crossing over the Cumberland, turn on 149 up to River Road. That project is going to get underway here soon, but basically that's what the MPO does, is the larger projects. Now we work with the street department and the county highway department, but we don't do the roads in your subdivision or the roads you take to get out of your subdivision. We do the bigger projects. On the website, there's a lot of stuff about air quality, and of course that's what I'm going to touch on this morning, that you can go to and get on a daily basis. Won't bore you with all of this, but of course the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is the one that imposes these regulations. Back in 2015, the EPA strengthened the air quality standard, and the first one I'm going to talk about is the ground level ozone. All falls under the Clean Air Act. Typical with any subject nowadays, and the website, there's a lot of information available. Again, if you go to our website, you'll have a link to EPA's, and you can get specific information about the ozone standard. And of course, there's a lot of other stuff on that website. What this is, I know it's hard for you to see if you can see it at all. On the 8-hour ozone standard, they take a combination of 3 years. What's on the screen is 2015, 16, and 17. The red corresponds with what kind of catches your eye, stop or so forth, similar to a traffic light. Those are high numbers. The yellows are kind of in the middle range, and then the light blues would be typical of say, a green light at a signal. Just kind of a color scheme there. The bright reds, again, are high numbers. Down the side, you'll see the different counties here, and this is all Tennessee data. We're at the bottom. You're saying I don't see Montgomery County. The monitor is actually located in Christian County, Kentucky, east of Hopkinsville. That's where the monitor is. The good news is, for these 3 years, 15, 16, and 17, we didn't violate the standard. The air quality is good, particularly for the 8-hour ozone on that. That's the good news. The bad news is the scientists say that it takes less of this ozone to make you sick. If you're familiar with it at all, basically the doctors say that it's almost like having your lungs sunburned. Doesn't sound too good, does it? So I'm not an air scientist, and obviously I'm not a doctor, but that is the problem with the ozone. Who it affects the most? Young children. Anybody here have a child with asthma? Okay, that's good. And then the elderly too, because the young, obviously their young lungs are developing. The old, the lungs have worked for a long time, and that's who is the two age groups that are very susceptible to the ozone or the negative effects of the ozone. This slide here again, just another format. Remember, the reds are high numbers, and we've got some yellows. Good news is, again, for us, we didn't have any of the violations, so we are in what they call attainment on obtaining the standard. The next pollutant I'm going to touch on is a PM 2.5. And the thing about jumping back real quick, the ozone, late in the afternoons, you see the pretty sunsets. When the sun is down low in the horizon, you see all those colors. A lot of that is ozone, unfortunately. It looks pretty, but it's not good to breathe by any means. The PM 2.5 that I'm going to talk about now, you can't even see it. I didn't bring the picture. It takes 80,000 of them to fill a column of human hair. 80,000 of them will fill one strand of your hair. That's how small it is. The problem with the PM 2.5 is, since it is particularly so small, it gets deeper into your lungs. And that's what the medical profession says. PM 2.5, again, we have a number of standards that we have to obtain. The good news is we are meeting those standards, obtaining them. You'll see across the top, well, you might not be, but Memphis, Nashville, of course, any of the large cities, the large urban areas are going to have them. Now on the ozone, we are 1, 2, 3 over there from the 2 over, from the Memphis, just to the left of Lawrence County. Our monitor's right down the road here at the golf course, Mason Rudin Golf Course. There's a little white building, literally not much bigger than those 2 doors right there, and that's where the monitor is. And again, that's how they know what's in the air at a particular on a particular day. Good news again, we're not exceeding the standards on the PM 2.5 or the 8-hour ground level ozone. Yes?
So is PM 2.5 particulate matter?
That's it. It is. It's particulate matter. Some good organizations, and I'm not favoring anyone and leaving any out, but we work with Clean Cities. Anybody familiar with Clean Cities and some of the stuff they try to do? Bottom line is, if you're running a combustible engine, emissions are coming out of your tailpipe. And that's mainly what I deal with, again, with the transportation side of things. Now, of course, your industry and stuff like that also has emissions coming out in the industrial parks and so forth. That's a stationary source. I don't work with that at all. Again, I'm working with what's coming out of the tailpipes of vehicles. Clean cities, again, what can we do as typical citizens or everyday drivers? What can we do? The main thing is try to replace the petroleum with alternative and renewable fuels. We're going to touch on in just a minute, but those are like biodiesels, electric, instead of using gasoline and so forth. Reduce the use of it. Smarter driving practices and reduce the idling times. Smarter driving practices is don't go out for one trip. If you go out and do multiple things. Go to the grocery store, go to the bank, so on and so forth. Try to combine your trips instead of just doing one single trip purpose. And ultimately, the only way to do this again is to eliminate your use of the petroleum fuels in your vehicle. Now that's very hard for any of us to do. Any of you use mass transit at all? Weekly basis, monthly basis? Yeah, pretty typical, unfortunately. Generally, our schedules just don't allow for us to leave our house, catch a bus, come to work, and then on the return. Hopefully that's going to change. That's one thing we can do again is use the mass transit facilities. Trip elimination I touched on again. Try not to go out for one purpose trip. Always try to do multiple things. Unfortunately, as John touched on with some of his diagrams, Clarksville, Montgomery County, as you know, is continuing to grow, as well as all of Middle Tennessee, and particularly Nashville, Davidson County. There's no signs of this stopping. Right now, Clarksville, Montgomery County, approximate population under 200,000, probably about 190, 188,000, something like that. 25 years, going to be about could be 320, 340,000. So if you think it's busy now, and it's only going to get worse. And I think you all know, I've been here, I guess, going on 22 years. I'm only about 6 miles from work. Used to be able to make it in about 6 minutes. It depended on how many the red lights I would catch. Now, coming in this morning, took me about 14 minutes. And I think you all know that too. The traffic congestion is going to continue to increase as the area continues to grow. They do a lot of good stuff. We touched on just a minute ago the alternative fuel that you can use, again, whether it be biodiesels, the E85s, and then even the electric vehicles, which we're going to talk more about. This is just a map showing you that the fueling station locators, they are out there. There still is a problem. I don't drive an electric vehicle. Does anybody drive a? Okay. Good job, good job. I'm sure your concern is, well, how can I get to Knoxville if I need to go? Or how could I go to Birmingham or even further? Again, that's been an issue. It is getting better. They're putting in more stations literally every month and every year. But obviously you have to have a peace of mind knowing that you can get in that electric vehicle and go where you need to without running out. So again, it's newer technology, and there's always going to be some things to work out, but it's getting better every day, like I said. Again, all of this is on the website, the Kumpa website. They've even got apps now, like they have for everything, that will pull up your fuel station locator, tell you the hours and all that stuff. PM 2.5 mainly comes from the diesel engines. Tractors, which are a big part of our economy, and particularly to the north in Christian County, Kentucky, and Todd and Trigg, up to the north of us. Big agriculture, and you'll see that type of equipment. Construction equipment, again, with all this growth that's going on, you see it building houses, and you're fixing to see it working on the roads more. The middle picture, marine, we don't have any. This is obviously a ocean-going vessel, but of course we have our Cumberland River, and you see the barges coming and going, and we all see these tractor trailers on our interstates. And then the last one, the school buses. EPA, this is one of their biggest programs and most successful programs. On the school buses, real quick, Clarksville, Montgomery County school systems converting over the older diesel engines to the propane, and that's a good thing. And again, there's funding available, and hopefully they'll continue to do that in the future. Again, because the young children in their lungs are most vulnerable to these emissions, and particularly the PM 2.5. I'm not going to go through this again. School bus fleet conversions here in Tennessee and throughout the U.S. has been very successful. I don't have the numbers. The last one I saw, literally, it's over 1 million buses in the last 10 years have been converted, and I hope we can all agree that that's a good thing for sure. Again, other applications of the construction vehicles. I didn't have a picture of the train. I don't think they even have conversions and kits and stuff for even locomotives on trains. And then again, the marine, which we have the barges here. Anybody here on a Volkswagen? You got the 2-liter engine?
I have no idea.
Yeah, okay. Have you been contacted on the settlement? Oh, well, you must not have the 2-liter. VW settlement is huge. Again, I apologize. You can't see it very well or at all. Just on the Kentucky side, it's going to be about just under $20 million over the next 2 years. Tennessee, there's more funding available. It's just under $30 million over 10 years. Again, with the VW settlement, they use software to trick the emissions test, and the engines weren't quite as clean as they had indicated they were. They pleaded guilty to that, and it's billions and billions of dollars that they've settled to part of the settlement agreed to pay. Now, the lion's share of the funding is going to go back to the owners or the consumers that actually bought the vehicles. They'll either get them fixed or upgrade them to a newer model, something like that, or flat out buy them out. The remaining portions, what I'm going to touch on, as part of the settlement agreement, what they're going to be going after and sponsoring and trying to promote is electric vehicles and vehicles that use, again, the alt fuels, whether that's the propane, liquid propane gas, and the different alt fuels is what the money's going to be going for. Right now, this is in the early stages. We've actually got a call later this week on the Kentucky side on it, getting more details. We don't have anything particularly set up here in Clarksville, Montgomery County, but again, we're going to be talking with the school system and trying to potentially buy more buses. Any of their vehicles they use in their support fleets, pickup trucks, anything like that that is eligible for this, we're going to be trying to go after and utilizing some of this funding. Question?
So has Montgomery County submitted a proposal yet?
Not yet. It's not time. It's not time. Yeah, but that is coming up. Again, we'll just submit those proposals. Again, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get those old diesel engines off the road, basically, and replace them with a new, more efficient diesel engine that puts out less emissions, the PM 2.5. Again, we touched on about the transit. What are we doing here locally? Just an example, CTS, Clarksville Transit System, the hybrid buses, you've seen them, got the big white panels on top of the bus, literally, and that's what houses the equipment. Again, the engine is newer, puts out less emissions, less PM 2.5. And then the braking system, when they apply the brakes, it stores that kinetic energy, and then when they go to take off on the green light, that releases that energy and starts the bus out, that stored up energy, so to speak. From 13 to 16, secured just under $7.5 million in CMAQ, that's congestion mitigation, air quality funding, here for this system, and they're purchasing a total of 9, and those are those big buses. They're 30 feet long, and then also 2 trolleys that you see running around. One of them's over there, the Austin P trolley. You'll see it sometimes. Buses operate about 307 days a year out of the 365. They average about 220 miles a day. Add all that up, it's a lot of miles, 67,500 times the 9 in the fleet, 607,000 miles per year the buses are running. The trolleys, a lot less, they're running about 10,000 miles a year. But again, that is just one way we all can help to reduce emissions, whether it's the PM 2.5 comes from the diesel engines primarily, or the ozone, which comes out of our passenger vehicles. Again, we've got one of the other duties that we do there at the MPO is a long-range plan update. We're in that process right now. Did any of you see the opportunity to fill out a survey, to go online and do the surveys? That was out, and it will be ending here on the 23rd. Had a real good response. I think within the first 2 days we had about 1,600 responses. Traffic congestion and air quality is a big issue here among our citizens, I can tell you. Usually transportation and so forth usually either ties with crime and violence, or it's first. Those crime and violence and transportation go 1 and 2 on most surveys, and most of the citizens are indicating. So back to our website again, cuampo.com. The survey's available there. It's available on the county website, city website. We partnered up with Austin P. It's getting a lot of the younger people to fill out surveys. Another item that's coming up is the bike ped facilities, sidewalk, bike lanes, and so forth. I know the city's Park and Recreation Department has had one public meeting and are fixing to have another one on trying to get input from citizens about do you have sidewalks? What condition are they in? Do we need more sidewalks to connect your subdivision with her subdivision and so forth, or connect from there to the school? It's very important that we have documentation, kind of like John indicated. There's no way that we can catch this by ourselves. It's just not possible. So it's important that people indicate if they do want more of these facilities and where they're needed specifically. So again, if you have time, go to the websites and fill out the survey. We'd appreciate it. Like I said, it's not as good as John's on the pictures, but be glad to answer any questions on the air quality. Again, the good news, air quality is probably the cleanest it's been probably in almost 30 years. And now, why is that? It's mainly back to our vehicles that we drive. The engines are as clean and as efficient as they have been in, like I say, decades. The bad news, the scientists and the medical profession says it takes less of these emissions to cause health problems, obviously. But we're all in this together. Anything you can do, like I said, on reducing the amount that you drive and the way you drive on a given day, it does matter. Do you know how much you drive in a year? I drive about 14,000 miles a year on average, sometimes a little more, sometimes less. Do you know how much you drive? Never look at it? Okay. Anybody know? Average now is about 15,000, you know. About 8 years ago, it was 12,000. A lot of that has to do with the price of gasoline when it was $4 several years ago. People drove less. The Clarksville Transit System, the buses carried more passengers than they had a record year than they ever had. Now gas is back down, you know, running the low twos. We're all probably driving a little bit more. So the average now is about 15,000. Again, average person per year. With all of our roads here in Clarksville, Montgomery County, again, thinking about how much you drive and thinking how many people are here and vehicles are here, you want to guess to how many miles are driven on our roads on a daily basis here? If you added everything up, the buses and all of our cars and our school buses and the construction vehicles and the trucks, anybody want to take a guess? It's probably more than you'd realize. About 4.5 million miles are clocked in on an average day.
On one day?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So see, and we're all burning what? We're burning fuel, gasoline or diesel, whatever it is, and that's where these emissions are really coming from, so to speak. So again, that shocks people a lot too, is how much are we driving. Again, just go back and think about however long you've been here, how long it's taken you again to get to work now, or to get to the mall, or get to the ball field, or wherever you're going. The times are increasing. Never talked to anybody that says, hey, it's taking me less time. And unfortunately, again, those times are going to continue to go up because the congestion is going to increase. You're seeing a lot down Nashville-Davidson County on the big transit referendum that's coming up, and May 1st, I'm pretty sure on that. That's a big step for the area. Again, that's obviously directly nothing to do with us, but very much so indirectly. We run the buses out on the interstate at exit 11 on the park and ride lot, which is on the north side of 76 and 24. Did you know that was there, the park and ride lot? If you go out there, the buses leave in the morning, starting about 6, and then they separate about 15 minutes out, and there's 4 of them going to Nashville. And then they come back in the afternoons, obviously. That's a sign of things that people are getting tired of getting stuck out on 24. It's going to take more of those buses going to and from Nashville for us to help get to the other project that you hear about is a train to Clarksville or the train to Nashville, so forth. That's long term. I think that's probably about 20 years out, hopefully sooner, but it's still going to be a while out. It is. Again, we're running 4 buses now. We would need to run probably about 22 to 25 buses. And then it would be feasible to start running a train. So again, we're still a long way out, but the transit vote is huge, like I say, there in Nashville-Davidson. If it passes there, personally, I'm for it. I have to deal with that traffic about once or twice a week. I'm glad I don't deal with it daily. But again, if it passes there, I think you will see potential for Clarkson Montgomery County to start doing more things, potentially more city buses, more buses for the interstates, and more carpool van pools and things like that. But bottom line is more people are coming and we're all driving. And generally we're driving by ourselves in our separate vehicles. So that's the underlying problem. Any questions on air quality, any of the projects? All right. Well, I appreciate your time this morning. And like I say, please go to the website. Ton of information on there. Survey take about 10 minutes to fill out, and let us have it. Tell us where you're in congestion and where you need the pedestrian or bike facilities, if you like those. Did you have another question, ma'am?
No.
Okay.